Do we have another copy?
Yeah.
Or can you help Srinivas? Okay, thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha Kama Udaradhi.
Moksha Kama Udaradi.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Divena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Rajeta Purusham Param.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha Kama Udaradhi.
Moksha Kama Udaradi.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Divena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Please chant.
Akama sarva kamo va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha kama
Moksha Kama
Kama Udaradi.
Indrena bhakti yogena.
Divrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta purusham param.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Akama sarva kamo va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha kama udaradi.
Moksha Kama Udaradhi.
Indrena bhakti yogena.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta purusham param.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha Kama Udarati.
Moksha Kama Udaradhi.
Divena Bhakti Yogena.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajata Purusham Param.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Akama sarva kamo va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha kama udaradhi.
Moksha Kama Udaradhi.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajeta purusham param.
Yajeta Purusham Param.
Akama sarva kamo va.
Akama Sarva Kamo Va.
Moksha kama udaradhi.
Moksha Kama Udaradhi.
Tivrena bhakti yogena.
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena.
Yajet purusham param.
Jeta Purusham Param. Okay, synonyms together, please. Akama, one who has transcended all material desires. Sarva Kama, one who has the sum total of material desires. Va, either. Moksha Kama, one who desires liberation. Udharadhi, with broader intelligence. Tivrena, with great force. Bhakti Yogena, by devotional service to the Lord. Yajeta, should worship. Purusham, the Lord. Param, the supreme whole. In translation together. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. This very important verse follows, of course, a long list of all the demigods one should turn to for particular boons. But one with broader intelligence, even if one has all kinds of desires for this world, should still turn to the supreme person. Okay. Do you have Prabhu? Do you know? Oh, okay. Okay. Would you like to start the purport? Yeah, please.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama, or the Supreme Personality. It is He only who can award liberation to the impersonals by absorbing such aspirants in the Brahma Jyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. The Brahma Jyoti is not separate from the Lord, as the glowing sun ray is not independent of the sun disk. Therefore, one who desires to merge into the Supreme Impersonal Brahma Jyoti must also worship the Lord by Bhakti Yoga, as recommended here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. In the previous chapters, it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and in the same way, in this chapter, it's emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, thus being the supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must therefore seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage.
I think from the time of, really from Vivekananda, the late 1800s forward, the concept of Hinduism is generally centered around impersonal ideas of the Supreme. In other words, the Shankarite. And there's a whole history to Shankaracharya in the Vedic pantheon. He was the avatar of Lord Shiva, specifically meant to drive Buddhism out of India. Of course, Buddha came as another avatar for the purpose of getting people away from the Vedas, which they were misusing. Buddhism became very popular. And then because the idea of nirvana from Buddhism caught on, the idea of nothingness after death, of no individuality, and after that, Shankara said, okay, well, we can interpret the Vedas in this way. And then you can again follow the Vedas. So that has more or less remained the general understanding of Hinduism, which is, of course, a word that never appears in the Vedas. But the idea of impersonal liberation is unfulfilling to the heart because we want relationships. And so in this comment, Srila Prabhupada is saying here that even if you want just relief from the suffering of this world, which is what liberation means, moksha. Let me just get out. I don't want to put an end to it. Still, one should approach Krishna. The idea of liberation appeals to those who are really through with this world. They just want to be out. And so it doesn't really matter what happens afterwards, as long as I can just end the suffering. I imagine you have patients like that sometimes. I had enough. I just want to end it all. The problem is that there is reaction to everything we do. So even if somebody were, for example, to commit suicide, it doesn't end the existence of the soul. And the reaction to that is awful. And there's still desires with no body to fulfill them. So some people describe this as the origins of ghosts. Ghostly people, or the ghostly souls who want to occupy other bodies. Has anyone ever experienced that? Like when you're sleeping, you ever experienced it? You have just frozen with fear. Yeah, have you had that experience? So this is like a ghost trying to occupy our body, and certain places have it more than others. When our temple in New York had was a former nunnery or convent where many of the older ladies died, and so the devotees would often experience this sort of phenomenon, and it just kind of freezes you, and you're awake, but you can't do anything for a moment, and it's heart pounding. And so the simple thing is if you just say Hare Krishna, and but the point is the idea of wanting to end everything is impersonal liberation. Let me just put an end to it. And this, of course, is not a very constructive psychology for a human being. The problems that are overwhelming and suffering that is too intense to tolerate leads us to that kind of conclusion. So actually, the Vedic texts are very accommodating. Even if you want this, even if you're a total materialist or you want liberation, either way, approach Krishna. This is the beauty of Lord Krishna, in that he accepts everybody. Yeyatam mam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyam. As they surrender to me, I reciprocate accordingly. Everyone's on my path in all respects. Yeah. Even those who have no interest in God or no interest in Krishna specifically, they're also on the path designated by Krishna according to their desires. In the Gita, Krishna says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshtasthana priya, that I'm equal to everybody. I'm not partial to anyone. But if one offers love to me, I will reciprocate that love. If we don't want anything to do with God, God reciprocates with that, doesn't impose himself. If we're curious about God, God is curious about us. Well, maybe. But if we turn to him wholeheartedly, he also gives of himself wholeheartedly. The difficulty is that what we expect in that wholehearted reciprocation may not be exactly what he wants to give us. Just like a patient might come in and want a particular treatment or medication, but you know it's not what he needs, right? So, the example is given of the dentist, that we go to the dentist expecting to have a little pain for the purpose of preventing a lot more pain in the future. So when we turn to Krishna, it isn't always roses and peppermints. He will help relieve us of the fever of material attachment. Somebody told me an interesting story the other day, that joke that how many materialists does it take to change a light bulb? Just one, and the whole world revolves around them. So this is our disease in the material world, that we're thinking everything revolves around us, and we fail to understand how God is actually the center of everything. So Krishna consciousness means like turning that sense of importance from ourselves to him. And then with even a little effort, he will reciprocate in wonderful ways, amazing ways that just kind of burn off our material desires. This is the last point that Srila Prabhupada also mentions here. The impersonal existence of God does exist, but it's an inferior understanding, incomplete understanding. It's something like, you might say, Microsoft. So you use a Microsoft product. So what is your connection with Bill Gates? Right? He's behind it, and you have this indirect connection, but it's not the same as knowing him personally. So in the same way, to understand God's all-pervading presence, his omnipotency even, is an indirect connection, but not personal. Like his title is God, but his name is Krishna. So any discussion on this? Reflections? Any thoughts? Questions?
Yeah, I was thinking when you brought up the point about reciprocation, how we act Krishna reciprocates that way. But then also Krishna's qualities, all compassionate and all kind. So is that a quality of a kind person to reciprocate according to that person's actions?
It is, actually. As young parents, you should know this. Right? That our dependents will act in various ways, and our inclination is to redirect them in the way that we know is superior. But like in books like How to Talk So Your Child Will Listen, they teach this kind of, you reciprocate according to where the child is coming from, by responding in a relevant way, and setting aside what we think we want to instruct or we want to direct. The child will be much more amenable to what we have to say. It's kind of like avoiding the knee-jerk reaction, and especially as the children get older. When they're young, they think you're the greatest mommy and daddy in the world, and then when they're teenagers, they wish you lived in another state. So you go through these stages, right? But the idea is that we want to be relevant in our reciprocation, and Krishna is relevant in his reciprocation. If we have impediments, and yet we are turning to him, then he will reciprocate in a way that helps us surgically remove those impediments, which is not always an enjoyable experience. But the net result of the difficulty we go through is a realization that we would have not otherwise been able to acquire. So just that parents do have to discipline the child for their own good. So, and the child often does not like the discipline, but in the long run they appreciate. So this is how Krishna reciprocates. It's as unique as each one of us as individuals, how Krishna reciprocates with us.
I found the message of the Bhagavatam very hope-giving, meaning this is the aspirational standard, to not have any personal desires, to always want to serve Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
But acknowledging that not all of them will be that, and being not comfortable, but acknowledging that you're not that,
Mm-hmm.
but I still have all these desires, but I am not condemned.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's still room for you,
Yes.
because one day you'll get to that place, but until you get that, keep the process, keep doing the process.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And that's just the antithesis of feeling, okay, I'm saved. I believe in Krishna and I'm saved. It's like we read in Bhaktivinoda Thakur and our other acharyas how there's so much self recognition, self-deprecation, you could say, in a constructive, in a wholesome way. That yes, I recognize my shortcomings, and yet God is so kind; He accepts me. This is so much better than the alternative, which is sort of a materialistic religion, where you can have all the faults and it doesn't matter as long as you believe. I believe I'm saved. You don't believe, you're not saved, like we were talking about. Yeah. But belief is advanced, or faith is advanced. It's not something that you get just by filling out a form. Faith comes from the experience that I turned to God. God gave me these troubles. I went through the troubles. I'm better for it. Therefore, I trust Him. and repeated experiences of this. And it doesn't stop, by the way. As you get in your 60s, 70s, it just keeps going. But there's a certain callousness that develops, a certain reduced expectation of happiness in this world. And that also helps offset our shortcomings. Yeah, I have shortcomings, and this world has got its shortcomings. And so none of this is really the issue. The issue is how am I going to serve the Lord who's given me so much? Yes. Okay, any other thoughts on this? Okay.
How do we stay focused on Him? How do we stay on the path when we don't seem to find any answers?
Right.
We don't hear from Him at all.
Yes, the dark night of the soul. I'm turning to God, but I'm still suffering. This is why chanting is very helpful. In this day and age, the previous kinds of meditations are not really accessible to us. Long austerities or emptying the mind of all thought. That's very difficult in this very materialistic age. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna's most recent avatar, taught the chanting as the most effective means to deal with these kind of issues. By chanting, we feel reciprocation, and that takes an effort. It takes a time and commitment, and that. But then the effect of it is that we feel, okay, in spite of the difficulties, I'm still connected with God. Our relationship with God is not dependent on what we experience in this world, which is inevitably going to have its ups and downs. Our relationship with God is dependent on my dynamic effort to reach out to Him. And that is accessible to all of us all the time. Does anyone else like to comment on that? That's a very pertinent question.
I also think faith is that I learned in Krishna consciousness, that faith is a verb. It's not a state of mind. That sometimes you get to a place where Krishna, even if you put me through this horrible scenario, which is my worst case, even if you put me through that, I'll still not leave you. I'm still going to pick up my beads and chant. I'm still going to be. At some level, for me, it's very liberating. Otherwise, it seems very transactional relationship, which is every other relationship in the world. If you do this, then I'll.
Yes.
But then you get to a place where I don't know what is good for me. What I want is relief from this situation. But I do know that you have my best interest at heart. And maybe the solution is not coming quickly or the way I want, but I'm always under your protection. I don't even know what to pray for. I don't even know what is good for me. But there must be nothing in my life happens by chance. You are orchestrating. So, yeah. It's
good. Is it, in a medical analogy, comparable to administering medicine to a patient who doesn't want to take it?
Or giving chemotherapy. If you think about the chemotherapy drugs we gave, they were all used as chemical weapons in World War II. That is why people throw up, because the body knows it's a toxin and it's trying its best to reject. And we somehow get it through. And then when the patient feels better, for example, some patients come to us about, we don't want, you're giving me poison. The hospital makes money, and then we are like, well, you're not feeling well, what's the harm in trying?
Mm,
You're already miserable.
mm,
And then once they get the chemo, they realize they actually feel better, the cancer goes down.
mm.
So that might be one analogy where it's just unpleasant. You kind of go through temporary suffering, but then to get into remission.
I was thinking about what you said. Faith is a verb. I've never heard faith as a verb, but English has this wonderful way of turning nouns into verbs. Right. So let's faith it.
No, I meant faith is a verb in that there's a process.
Oh, no, I understand. Yes. In other words, it's not just a belief. It is a dynamic reciprocate. Yes, yes. That's very nice. Thank you.
I was thinking, like, along with the faith, I think patience is also a key.
Mm,
So initially, like when I started, right, I used to think, okay, I'm like doing this service. I want Krishna to reciprocate immediately, right? Or we expect, right, in this way. Because when we come from material life, if we do something, we expect the result,
mhm,
right? So that's the same way when we start our journey, we expect Krishna to reciprocate sooner. And when those things doesn't happen, we start doubting, right?
Mhm.
Is it still there? Are we doing the right thing?
mhm.
But I think over the period of time, when we have patience, we learn things, we experience, and then we understand, yeah, we have to have patience, we have to wait. Krishna will reciprocate in a right way.
Yes, yes, in his own time.
That comes with the experience, I think. So you have to wait and see.
Yes, yes. It takes going through the whole course of medication, so to speak. Yeah, yeah. That's a wonderful point. And Sri Radha, what about you? Any thoughts?
I was just thinking about like whenever I have a down period, that time I feel more strong to pray. Like I feel like I want to pray more to the Lord. So I feel that emotion that Lord, please help me during this time of trouble. That's how I try to feel connected to the Lord. I feel during the happy times, I feel I take the Lord for granted. That he's there, but I don't put in that much emotion.
So it helps your spiritual life to get knocked down sometimes. Yeah, yeah. Krishna Smarnam, any
I'm just opposite to what you guys are. When I'm happy and everything is going good, I
Krishna.
but when I'm not scared or sad or not well, like I cannot make that connection at that time.
Krishna.
Yeah, but overall, I think chanting is helping, and then the patience, and also not having a lot of expectation, right? Like so, start with, okay, when I pray, this is what I am going to get from a benefit standpoint, but just being accepting of what is being what is being given, just receive it.
Yes.
Yasya prasada, Bhagavad prasada, that kind of thing, right? Like so, receive that and keep moving, right? Like so.
That's so nice. Yes, this is so much what we get from the Gita, isn't it? Like being steady and consistent in the dualities, the inevitable dualities. Matra sparshas tu konteya, sitoshna, sukha dukkha. Right? Agama payanona. Yes, these things pass like summer and winter seasons. They pass, and it doesn't seem like they're going to pass from the middle of them, but they do. And then, does anyone remember the verse when Lord Brahma stole the cowherd boys, and then Krishna outsmarted him, and then he came back very contrite? And so one of the famous verses he spoke that Srila Prabhupada said should be the motto for all devotees. Do you remember this verse? Tatenu kampam susamikshimano punjana evatma kritam vipakam tadvag vapuvir vididhatu mamto jivete sa mukti pade sadaya bhakti. Right? That so this is a 3-step formula for dealing with difficulties. First of all, recognizing this is my responsibility, that I'm just getting a reaction from what I have done in the past, even minimized by Krishna's grace. And secondly, continuing on with my connection with Krishna in spite of the difficulty. And then the third thing is to what? Remember? Do you remember what the third aspect is?
As the sons get the
Inheritance.
inheritance.
Yes,
Just by living,
By living, you
Yes.
will also get the
that's right.
blessings.
to enter into the special.
That's right. And if we just survive this, there's hope. In other words, there is hope. If we just survive this particular period, then just like a son who survives inherits the property of the father. So the kingdom of God becomes the rightful claim of the steady sadhaka.
There is a similar verse in Ramayana where Sita Devi says the same thing actually. Like when she sees Hanuman, like for the first time, I mean, she was in despair being separated from Rama. But when she sees Hanuman for the very first time, she gets hope. And she says the same thing. Kalyani Batagadhiyam Laukaki Pratibhatama Eti Jivanti Manando Naramvarsha Satadapi. That means if a person lives to, just continues to live, just continues to exist. And at the age of 100, they will see some good things happen.
So there's hope. That's a beautiful quote. Thank you. I remember that section of the Ramayana. Hanuman is there offering to take her back, right?
And she says, "No, I won't."
No, only Ram.
Yeah, Rama.
And this is a fixed mind. Yes, just no. My Lord will save me.
Only my Lord.
Yes.
No messenger.
No messenger. So this is something that also we can remember in times of difficulty. That yes.
What I meant to ask is more in terms of like having like a real connection with God, not necessarily that we are not able to get rid of our difficulties. It's more to like we stay in the path of God. At what point do we actually form a connection with Him? Like where He's talking to us, or where we are getting message from Him, not getting a message saying like, okay, your difficulties will be over in this on the state of time, but like having like a at what time does it evolve? Or how do we get to that phase where we are
face to face,
talk to Him, and not just impersonal, but actually it becomes a personal relation. Like there's a dialogue going on.
It all depends on the individual. We want Krishna to talk to us. Are we talking to Krishna? Are we sharing our mind with Krishna? Are we doing our part in the exchange? And that's all we really have control over. He says in the Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayantite. That one who worships me with devotion, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So it takes that reciprocation we get first, Krishna giving us intelligence. What is the next step towards that point of face-to-face reciprocate or face-to-face association? He is selective about who gets to that stage, and this is why the little dings happen along the way that we're actually qualifying ourselves to come to that association. So when does it happen? It could be today, it could be 1,000 years. It's really, He's ready. Are we ready? So being able to trust Krishna and say, okay, this is awful, but I trust you, or to be able to remember Krishna. Krishna, things are great by your mercy, constant practice, actually. This is why spending time in the morning, for example, reading Bhagavatam or chanting and having these kind of devotional injections in the morning, they help us remain conscious through the day. And the more we're conscious, the closer we come to that. The most I've seen, honestly, though, Prabhu, in my life is that when people are close to death, people who have been practicing in the final days, weeks, moments, when everything else is stripped away and all the things that were important to them are no longer important, that's when there seems to be that intense reciprocation for those who have practiced. And the Gita talks about this. Whatever we fill up our lives with, that we remember at the time of death. So, and then that in turn determines our next destination. So it's in this world, it's rare to find somebody who's actually talking with Krishna face to face. my guru, Srila Prabhupada, was asked this question. Do you see God? And so he deferred to one of his disciples to answer. And the disciple said, well, the pure devotee of God sees God in everything and sees God everywhere. And he was answering philosophically like that. Prabhupada interrupted me. He said, no, face to face. So it is possible. At what stage it happens is impossible to say. That's between us and Krishna. Essentially, when we have no other vested interest in this world, we are eligible to enter that highly elevated stage. He's ready. It's just how ready are we? All right. Anyone else like to comment on that?
I was going to say that Krishna is talking to us, but are we listening? And sometimes it's not Krishna talks to us directly, but an insight that comes during japa, or another devotee says something to you, or you listen to a class and some message. I have seen that a lot.
Right. Or even just open the Bhagavatam, some random page.
Random page you open, or whatever was bothering you, the answer will come. So I often feel like he's sending me messages, but it's like the radio tuner.
I was about to say.
I'm not tuned in. So it's like going over my head. But when I'm tuned in, I think what chanting does is, Srinivas, it gets to a place where I can't see Krishna, I can't talk to Krishna, but I feel his presence at every moment. Even when I'm giving horrible news to a patient, I'm still chanting the Mahamantra and I feel his presence. Krishna, give me the intelligence for compassionate words to come. So I don't mess this up or not do insensitive. So I feel his presence. I don't see him, but I feel his presence.
How about when you're writing code? Are you praying? Are you praying?
When it breaks, I do.
You ask ChatGPT to write the code.
I was also thinking one more thing that so I was thinking of the analogy of seeing Krishna as to seeing the president of the country. So you can make an effort and be eligible, qualified to see the president directly. You do something extraordinary, and president will say, "All right, I want to see this person." Or you just find out that who this president is very close to. You try to get closer to them, and then president will say, "All right." So another way is also to associate with those who are closer to Krishna, like Prabhupada, through his books, and all the devotee associations. So hopefully, Krishna will let's bring him the inner circle.
I got a fundraising appeal the other day. Contribute $7 and you will have a chance to have dinner with President Biden and his wife. Just $7 and you enter the lottery. So there are exceptions. Just like sometimes there are honorary degrees given from a university, but if you can't, okay, my plan is an honorary degree. not a good plan, right? My estate includes a lottery ticket. All right, so let's stop there. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.